Hello girls and squirrels, happy Friday and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be part 3 in my fall and winter fashion trends 2022 and 2023 series. If you haven't seen the first 2 videos already, I will link them down below so you can go check those out. Today we are going to be talking about shoes, handbags, and accessories. Now I am substantially late on this. I have really dropped the ball on this one. Holy cow, time is just not real. I had so many birthdays just pop up on me. Not that they popped up, but you know how you just get in the swing of things and you just like forget how much you have to do? That's what happened. Went out of town right as the second video in this series went out, celebrated a couple birthdays over the next couple weeks, and then got home, had to catch up on stuff, and now I am preparing to go out of town yet again for a wedding. So life is just insane, and it's not going to get any better until probably February because of the holidays and more birthdays. So I apologize for the delay in this part 3, but I am here now and I will be putting out part 4 next week, which is men's fashion trends. So keep an eye out for that. So without further ado, let's just get started. All right, so we're gonna start with shoes, we'll do bags, and then we'll do accessories. So first up in shoes is patent leather. And this is typically found a lot in Mary Janes and heels, but you can find it in all types of styles of shoe. But definitely keep an eye out for the Mary Jane style because Mary Janes are also on the shoe trend list. Mary Janes are just that shoe with the little strap over it. It's very sweet. It's very twee style, very Zooey Deschanel. With the revival of the twee style, I think that's why we're seeing a lot of Mary Janes. Next up, we have super high platforms. Now, this has kind of been a slowly growing trend over the past about 2 years, but it's really kicked off now. We saw a lot of really chunky, just over-the-top platform boots and a lot of designers' collections. Next up, we have pointed toe, and especially in boots. Now, this has a lot to do with Y2K being such a huge trend. We all remember the Y2K stiletto pointed toe boots. These are pretty easy to find in the thrift store. They're getting a little harder because they are so trendy. But if you do see these out, definitely pick them up. The gaudier and the more Y2K they are, the better. Put those babies on DEPOP. Another early 2000s trend we're seeing is super thigh-high boots, but flat ones. I'm not a fan of this. I didn't like it then, and I don't like it now. I do love a good thigh-high boot or a knee-high boot, but I liked it to have a little heel on it. It just looks so odd to me. To me, it looks odd on my particular feet. Some people I've seen can pull it off, but for me personally, I like a little heel on my thigh-high boot. But either way, thigh-high and knee-high boots are always on trend for fall, so definitely keep an eye out for those. Another big trend that we've seen a lot lately are furry or fuzzy shoes. Now this kind of showed up in spring and summer with the like fuzzy kind of like slipper sandals, and they're not going anywhere. If anything, it's amping up. Now this isn't for everyone, and I know it's kind of, again, like that gaudy Y2K vibe, but definitely keep an eye out for them. Speaking of fuzzy shoes, we have the Mule. Now, a lot of Mules have that like fur liner or that fur interior for fall and winter. We saw this trend a couple years back with Gucci style Mules, and they are back in. Mules of all kinds, whether they're more 70s style or 90s or Y2K style, just a mule. Look out for mules. Don't know what I'm trying to say. Look out for mules. I think I love a mule personally because you can just slip it on and go. It's like, it's so nice. I love a shoe that I don't have to work to put on. Speaking of quick and easy, we have sneakers. Sneakers are huge right now. Sneakers are being worn with absolutely every kind of outfit you can think of. Dresses, skirts, suits, all of the above. It adds this kind of athleisure element, this kind of laid back style to more corporate style or more dressy style. This is one of my personal favorites. You guys know I have a pair of these white vintage Fila's that I wear with absolutely everything. I love putting on a pair of jeans and a blazer and those sneakers, and I'm just ready to go. It's so chic, but it's so like laid back and cool. I love this. So definitely keep an eye out for the sneakers. Next on the list, we have Wedges. Wedges. They are back because of Y2K. These Wedges were a huge thing in the early 2000s, and they are back. Now, we saw this a lot in sandals and heels in the spring and summer of this year, and now it is coming in boots. So I don't know how I feel about this. I have seen some really cute wedge boots. I don't know if it's my vibe, but I have seen plenty of people pull it off. So I feel like this is one of those ones where it's going to be a little harder to find, but if you do find it, definitely pick it up. Next up, we have Oxfords. Again, this goes back to the revival of the twee aesthetic. Oxfords are more of a masculine, more academia take on Mary Janes. Mary Janes kind of give twee style a little bit more of that pinup retro vibe, and then the Oxfords kind of bring in that academia vibe, and we all know academia is also very on trend, so Oxfords work on several different levels. Next up is another one that surprised me, and that is rain boots. Rain boots are everywhere. I've seen Balenciaga do a ton of different styles of rain boots, and rain boots were all over the runway, which I don't know why that's so surprising to me, but I'm here for it. I love a good rain boot. What I'm seeing with the rain boot is not just like your typical rain boot. It's more of that like structured, kind of elevated platform rain boot. Kind of like what we're seeing with Balenciaga. Next up, we have Western boots, cowgirl boots, cowboy boots. This is not going anywhere anytime soon. The Western trend has been in full force for the past couple of years, and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. So keep an eye out for those cowgirl and cowboy boots, or any Western style boot, especially the more unique ones. As we continue with this trend, the Western boots just seem to get more and more unique, and playing off of that classic Western style, but adding a more modern twist. I feel like I don't need to mention this next category, but I'm going to anyways, and that is Y2K. Basically every shoe on this list is a Y2K throwback, so keep an eye out for all Y2K shoes. They are all on trend, basically. Next up, we have biker boots. We talked about this in the previous two videos in this series. This has a lot to do with biker core. This ties back into platform boots as well. We've seen a ton of biker boots in that platform style, so just keep an eye out for all of those elements. Next on the list, we have metallic. I feel like metallic shows up every fall and winter, especially when we get into winter because of the holiday season. Keep an eye out for those jewel tones, those silvers, those golds, because a lot of people are looking for those styles for holiday parties, New Year's Eve, things like that. And last but not least, we have hiking boots. This has to do a lot with gorp core, which we talked about in the previous video. This is just anything that looks outdoorsy, basically. But we're seeing, not only are we seeing hiking boots, we're seeing them in a more unique kind of modern way, kind of like the Western style. Like the funkier the hiking boot, the better. So keep an eye out for those unique hiking boots. It's not necessary, I mean, obviously if you find like a classic pair of like Timberlands, definitely pick those up. But if you see a more, funky contemporary style hiking boot, definitely pick it up. All right, so let's move on to the bag trends. First on the list, we have oversized bags and mini bags. Now, we talked about this in the last two videos. We always have that juxtaposition in fashion trends where it's one extreme or the other. So we saw a ton of these huge oversized slouchy bags on the runway, as well as these micro mini bags. And these are both trends from the early 2000s. This is great news for those of you who are sourcing because it's easy to find either one of these bags, and either way you go, it's on trend. So that's nice. Next up, we have chunky chains. We saw this, I think it was 2019. There was a huge revival in chunky chains, and now it has made its way back. Any bag with like a chunky chain accent or a chunky chain handle is what I was trying to say. I just kept saying chunky chain so much, the only word I could think of was chain. Anything with a chunky chain on it. You guys get it. You get it. We can move on. All right, next on the list is puffer. Now, we talked about this in the last video with puffer jackets, puffer boots, puffer pants, puffer everything. And when I said puffer everything, I meant it. Even puffer bags. So keep an eye out for those. A lot of designers were showing puffy bags. We saw some Prada and some Balenciaga bags in this style, and I have to say they are pretty cool. I don't know if I'll be participating in this one, and I don't know how available this is going to be at the thrift store, but if you do find one, definitely pick it up because they are very on trend. Next on the list, we have slim and sleek. This is kind of self-explanatory, just a real classic streamline bag. I feel like this is one of those styles where it's kind of timeless and classic, so no matter what, I always look out for these types of bags, especially in vintage styles. Next up, we have the Half Moon bag. This is very self-explanatory as well. It looks like a half moon. I absolutely love this shape. I think it is so, I don't know, it just adds such an interesting element to an outfit. It really ties everything together, and I just absolutely love this style of bag. I come across them pretty frequently too, so they should be pretty easy to find in your sourcing. Next on the list, we have a similar bag, which is this saddle bag. This is kind of reminiscent of early 2000s Dior. They made a ton of saddle bags in the early 2000s, and we're seeing a resurgence in those. They kind of have a similar shape to the Half Moon, but they're just a little bit different. They also come in like crossbody styles and even waist belt styles, so keep an eye out for saddle bags. Next on the list, we have fuzzy or fluffy or furry, whatever you want to call it. We saw this with shoes, and we're also seeing it in bags. This is another one that's kind of hard to find, but definitely keep an eye out for it. I feel like this kind of comes up every year in fall and winter as well, just because when people think of fall and winter, they think of like fuzzy and like furry. Again, we are seeing these a lot in like the Y2K styles, and then again in like more classy kind of elegant styles as well. All right, last but not least on our bags trends list, we have woven bags. Now, this surprised me because this is typically a trend that we see in spring and summer and not fall and winter, but I'm really excited about this because we're seeing a lot of this woven texture in leather, and I think it just adds an element to fall and winter that you wouldn't typically expect, but it's really classic and chic, and I don't know, I love adding this style bag with like a white tank, jeans, some gold jewelry. It gives a very model off-duty vibe, and it adds an element of interest to a just plain outfit. Bottega Veneta does a ton of these types of bags. I always find these style bags in the thrift store as well in vintage styles, so definitely keep an eye out for those brown and black and even colored leather woven bags. Alrighty, so let's move on to accessories. First up, we have ties. This is a huge early 2000s trend. Avril Lavigne used to wear a tie with absolutely everything. This is very reminiscent of the grunge era in the 90s, and then it trickled down into the early 2000s as well. Now, ties obviously are abundant at the thrift store, and if you are gonna pick these up, I would make sure they're either like a designer tie or it's a really unique grunge style, because obviously these are very abundant and not sure how well they will sell unless they are a designer brand or they're just a really unique tie. This may just be something you want to keep an eye out for yourself. Next on the list is Futuristic Sunglasses. Again, we've seen a ton of this in the Yeezy collections. Balenciaga has done a ton of these. Kim Kardashian wears these all the time. It's the Y2K style glasses, but amped up to absolute heaven, all the way up to the aliens. The more it looks like you stepped out of a spaceship, the better. Next on the list, we have head coverings. Now, this was a trend that I saw absolutely everywhere. It was all over the runway. It was all over street style. It was huge in Copenhagen and Europe and New York Fashion Week, Paris Fashion Week. This goes from anywhere from a scarf to a toboggan, but you're seeing these toboggans with the face cut out, so it's just a knit head covering. I don't know how to explain this other than that. It's like a ski mask, but the whole face is exposed. But again, this goes for like scarves as well. Again, this is one of those things, not sure how accessible it's going to be at the thrift store, but definitely keep an eye out. This is also something, if you knit or you crochet, that you could DIY yourself and sell those. And of course, always with fall and winter, keep an eye out for those unique, good quality scarves. Up next, we have metallic, and I kind of already touched on this with the metallic shoes. Metallic jewelry, any kind of shiny jewelry always comes back for winter, especially with those holiday parties and New Year's Eve. So keep an eye out for all the metallic accessories, even belts. Speaking of belts, our next accessory trend is belting. Now, if you're a Sex and the City a fan like me, you know that the queen herself, Miss Sarah Jessica Parker, Carrie Bradshaw, she was the queen of belting. She would wear these tiny little tops with these layered belts. She would have the belts just like on her exposed midriff, and she was just a queen of belting. So that is what has come back, that early 2000s kind of gaudy, kind of tacky vibe. We're also seeing it done in really classic ways, wearing layers of different chain belts with dresses and skirts and even tops. So definitely keep an eye out for really unique and fun belts. Chain belts especially keep an eye out for. They're very on trend and they sell very quickly. Next on the list, we have chic ball caps. They're being done in like a leather texture or like a suede texture or even a corduroy texture. These are more elevated ball caps as opposed to ball caps that are more sporty. Of course, the ball cap is just a classic element anyways, but definitely keep an eye out for those more elevated and classier, just kind of more stylized ball caps. Ball caps kind of tie into like the sneaker jeans blazer outfit, where it's kind of adding a more sporty athleisure element to a more corporate style. Next on the list, we have crystal jewelry. Now, we haven't seen a ton of this since the early 2000s and even like 2010s. Crystal jewelry used to be absolutely huge and it is making a comeback. Again, this is going to sell really well around Christmas time and New Year's for those holiday parties. But right now we're just seeing a ton of just like gaudy jewelry. People are really getting into jewelry. So keep an eye out for those vintage pieces, especially like those 80s and 90s pieces. Love to see it. Speaking of gaudy and over the top, we have Gobstopper Pearls. Now, pearls have been making a comeback for the past couple of years, a lot in part due to Harry Styles. Harry Styles is always seen wearing a pearl necklace, and now they are getting even bigger. On his most recent tour, he has been seen wearing these huge Gobstopper pearls, and they are making a comeback again. This is another thing that's reminiscent to Y2K, so keep an eye out for those pearls. Next on the list, we have major statement earrings. The funkier, the better. We kind of talked about this already in the last video, I believe, with just like that kitsch style coming back, things that are just over the top and kind of nostalgic, or you know, very like a Moschino kind of vibe where it's just over the top and almost kind of childlike. I think a lot of people are, you know, really nostalgic right now and just trying to find some semblance of joy. And it's very Harper from Wizards of Waverly Place. So keep an eye out for any of those funky statement earrings. You can even go the more classic route with this. I know a lot of 80s earrings are super statement and just over the top. And those are always in abundance at the thrift store. Next up, we have locks. What I mean by this is like lock charms. We've seen a lot of like gold and silver lock charm necklaces, kind of like the Tiffany's lock. I know the Tiffany's lock is a heart. I think in the early 2000s they did a regular lock as well, but we've seen a ton of this in accessories, whether it be on necklaces or chains, like the chain belt or the chain, I guess that's still a chain, like a pant chain. So keep an eye out for this. This is something that's easily DIYable. You can just order some charms and make your own necklaces if you can't find one in a thrift store. And last but not least, we have headbands. This is getting more into like the 2010s, I want to say, because headbands were like huge when I was in high school. We're getting into like the early 2010s and late early 2000s with this one, and I am interested to see if, you know, I mean, obviously we're gonna get, fashion goes in 20-year cycles, so we will obviously come up on 2010 trends, but we are starting to see that trickle in right now. Just big statement headbands. I've seen a lot of the big chunky black headbands. They're very classic, they're very chic. I've seen a lot with like pearls on them, so definitely keep an eye out for those. Again, not sure how accessible that's going to be at the thrift store, but it is something to keep in mind. Alrighty, so that does it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Sorry again that it is so late, and I promise I will get that men's style video out for you next week. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure and give it a thumbs up on your way out. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to be notified every time I upload, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.